Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet, a digital lifestyle magazine for women. Every week, our editor-in-chief, Kelly Castillo, along with Megan Block and special guests, participate in a deep dive discussion about recent articles and topics we have covered. We invite you to become part of our community where everyone's welcome. You can totally sit with us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to She's a Full-On Monet. I'm your host, Kelly, and I have with me, as always, Megan.
Hello. Hi, Kelly.
Hello.
Like your neutral aesthetic today.
Thank you.
Matching in black. Oh, can't go wrong with black, right?
Yeah, today was one of those days where I didn't have the mental power this morning to think about what I wanted to wear, so I literally grabbed all black and ran out the door.
Mm-hmm. We all need, do you remember that part in Clueless where like in the morning where she chose her clothes and she had like her computer open and she's like, oh, that looks cute. Like,
yeah, I had no time to process that.
I need that, but like you hit like auto correct, you know, it's just like find whatever is right and put it on me. It's normally just jeans and a t-shirt. It's whatever is mine is what won't embarrass my kids at drop off.
Yeah, I think I need to stand there like a paper doll and have someone dress me because I'm thinking of a million things in the morning and I try to hit the ground running and then I end up wearing my the clothes I walked the dogs in all day or the exercise clothes I wore to the gym all day.
I need your super stylish daughter to volunteer to write an article about like 5 solid outfits on days that you can't find anything. Like we all have the thing that we all have these things in our closet. We're getting off topic, but I mean, we all have these things in our closet that we could wear that go together and make up like I've seen people put jeans and a blazer together with a tank top. And I'm like, oh, like, I just need that in my Rolodex where on days where I'm like, no, but I can't say no.
Yeah. It's like, I have the same problem in my closet I have in the grocery store. Like if I walk into the grocery store, the minute the door is like whoosh open, my brain goes blank and I can't think of a single thing I need.
Whereas you write things down? You're a list maker.
I have to. That's what happens if I don't. And so when I go to my closet, my brain's like short circuits and I can't think of any cute outfit I've ever worn before.
No. Yeah. I just whatever's on top or clean. Yeah. All right. But anyway.
Pretty sad. Well, we are not
talking about how sexy we are. Talking about how sexy we are leading into that one.
That's a perfect way. We are talking about a topic today that's going to be a little bit interesting for either of us to talk about, but I think it's a good topic and I think it applies to a lot of women in the second half of their life. And that is dating and diving back into the dating pool. If you doesn't, the concept of dating in the second half of your life and baggage and negative thoughts that we have in our brains and kind of the monologue that goes on that we talk to ourselves. We've talked many times how we need to talk nicer to ourselves and we need to kind of reframe those thoughts and things that we say to ourselves in the mirror in a more positive light. So I think that is amplified when you're dating. I mean, I can imagine it is. And that's about today. So we're going to talk about negative thoughts.
Especially in our day and age right now, right? I mean, it's not like it used to be.
No, it isn't. And people met each other like at church or in social situations or where matchmakers would introduce you or friend of friend, family friend kind of situation. And so there was some background given at the actions that helped kind of foster these awkward, first dates. But now people are meeting, the coffee shop, online, in an app. You're really going into it blind and it's harder because I don't know what that person is looking for or what their expectations are. And B, people have gotten really burned and they're carrying that forward. And then there's all of vulnerability, especially if you're online dating. Is this person what they, displayed? What am I getting into? Is this safe? Like there's a lot of considerations that you have to do now that you never had to do before.
Oh, I'm not envious.
No, I do not think that the dating scene as it is in the world today is for me, for sure.
No, it's too much. It reminds me of that part in, I don't know if you've seen the movie He's Just Not That Into You, where Drew Barrymore makes this comment in the grocery store about how she has to worry about being rejected on like 5 different platforms now. It's like, it's so exhausting trying to find a person to begin with.
Yeah.
And then now you got to add in all the extra stuff, and it's like, sorry, I'm meaning like, and this the thing is like, going into the dating world is not like just for young people. It's not for like, it can happen at any time. People split up, and dating begins at a very later stages in life, and it's very daunting. The idea is daunting, and now you have all this extra stuff, especially if you're of a certain age and older. It's like impossible, like,
yeah, because it's not the same as when you meet someone when you're young and you have no hot button issues or triggers from previous hurts, not just that, but when you're dating in the second half of your life, usually that involves like an ex, it involves kids, it involves what went wrong in that relationship. And hopefully you've spent some time working on yourself to come into a new relationship without carrying it forward. Situation or just a loss. It could be, you could have lost, and that's also a trauma that needs to be healed. So coming into the relationship on a first, like, that new person doesn't know any of those triggers for you, and they have their own separate ones, and you guys are trying to figure out, like, how much do I share, when do I share it, and I need to be clear and communicate what I'm looking for, but at the same time not scare them off. It's so complicated.
Yeah. And if you haven't dated in a really long time, there's all these unspoken rules in the dating world that you may not be in tune with, that it's like everything, right? It's easier not to, my dad is single, and he dated for a little bit, but he dated a coworker, and it was always somebody he kind of knew through another connection. I don't know if he's ever attempted to date through the various ways you can date now as an adult, but I can only imagine how hard and how intimidating it would be, considering he has a hard time figuring out how to take like a good photo for me on his phone or utilize Facebook, right? It's like hard enough, to do it, period. Now you got to add all this technology.
And then you see these documentary shows like Tinder Swindler and stuff like that, where it can really scare you off.
Yeah, the whole idea just seems, well, what's the point? Maybe it's not for me, or maybe my time has passed, or, it's always easier not to. And they miss out on the second half of their life being something of finding another great love. My parents split before my mom passed away, but still, it's like dating after a certain age is just impossible, period. Unless you have some tech savvy grandma or some tech savvy dad of yours or mom of yours, or there are ways. I know there are great meetups and ways that people of certain ages and certain interests, you can meet up with people that are based on your religion or based on what you like to do or based on age. It's actually really easy. It's just there's a lot, so it's just seems hard to do.
Yeah, and I do want to preface this by saying, like, in no way are we implying that you need a partner in order to be complete. If you're happy and comfortable as a single person and you've are genuinely fulfilled in that circumstance, more power to you. I totally get that. I was in that situation. But if companionship is something that you're looking for and is important to you, then this is the conversation that we're having. So we don't want to give the impression that we think everybody needs to have a partner in order to be complete, because I believe that's true. But if you, like, I got married really young, and I've been continuously in relationships since then, so I haven't really had a lot of like single time or alone time in my whole life. And And I don't know that that's something that I would look for if I was single again at this point. Because I haven't
Sometimes it happens
experienced like being alone.
unexpectedly though. Sometimes you're like so fine with being yourself, and that itself is attractive. I mean, looking for a companion period isn't the right way to go about it. Sometimes you got to just spend time with yourself, and the right person will happen if it's meant to happen, right?
Yeah. And like you said,
maybe some like really cute grocery guy and you're like, but like I haven't dated in forever. I don't even know how to go about talking to him. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's sometimes those, I'm not looking for it, but it's happening. And now I'm a grown up and we're not in third period anymore. And what do I do next? Kind of thing. Like if I split from my husband, I would definitely not be in a space where I would want to date. But eventually, what if I found somebody that I enjoyed their time and it was like, then they like asked me out, then I'm all of a sudden in the dating zone. And I'm like,
yeah,
totally not prepared for that. Cause I'm totally clumsy when it comes to that stuff. So
and
it's
that's
like,
how it should be.
A panic mode, you know?
Yeah, that's how it should happen because like we talked about in the making adult friendships episode a couple episodes ago, the best way to meet people is to do things that interest you and put yourself in the environment around like-minded people, and then you'll naturally make connections and you don't need to be pursuing it. But
Exactly.
you know, if you love gardening, join your community garden, and there's a good chance that someone else there will be single as well. And then you can have that kind of connection in a meaningful, natural way.
To me, the idea of going to a place where you're trying to meet people for a romantic connection, you know, like speed dating style, where you see
a bar,
like that idea, like gives me anxiety because you have to like ask all these questions and you have to know almost right away if it's the right connection. Sometimes, like, no, not sometimes, all the time, like just finding ways to meet people in a natural way that doesn't feel so pressured is the only way to get this done, you know?
Yeah, because I can't even imagine like trying to go to a bar and meet people. It's such not my natural environment. But if that's an environment that you enjoy and you already are hanging out there, then that makes sense, and that's natural fit for you. But I'm in my 40s, Megan's in her 30s. If we suddenly became single today, we are looking at spending 50 years alone, right? 40, 50, 60 years alone.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's fun for a minute, but then that's a long stretch.
It's a long stretch. And it is, you know, we all want our kids to see us in healthy relationships and to model that for them, no matter what age they are. So I can see the appeal and the desire to have that companionship. You just have to be really careful that the negative thoughts that your brain defaults to don't overwhelm you. And that's because the dating world is, you know, there's a rejection element to it that if you take it as rejection, I don't think it needs to be seen that way. What you're looking for is someone who is a good fit for you, someone who is their weirdness complements your weirdness, right? Because we're all weird. And that you feel like you can make a deeper connection with. So if it doesn't work out, and many will not work out before one finally does, this idea that it's a rejection of you personally, or you're not good enough for that person, or you're not anything enough, or you're too much, is all a wrong way of thinking. So if you think of it as, you know, looking for your puzzle piece, then all the ones that aren't won't feel like it's so personal. It's such a personal rejection. If you went on a first date with someone and you felt like you guys connected and you had a nice time and you would be interested to see that person again and kind of get to know them more, and then they never call you again, that's you're going to replay it in your head and you're going to wonder, what did I say or do that was unappealing? It's very hard.
We're our toughest critics, right?
Yeah. And it's hard not to take that as rejection. If you were leaving the date feeling like, wow, that went great, I hope they call me tomorrow or whatever, and you don't hear from that person, or maybe you call them and they just tell you that they either don't answer you or ghost you, or they tell you that the connection wasn't there for them. It's hard to hear. And it's, as we get older, we have our own insecurities, right? We have insecurities depending on how our last relationship ended. and whether or not that was our choice or not, and whether or not that old partner has moved on or not affects how we see things. And also we have our insecurities as we're aging and as the point we're at in our life. Like everyone feels insecure about something. And this is also a time of our lives there's a lot of change. There's career changes, there's aging parents, there's kids, that we're raising or growing up and leaving the nest. A lot of my girlfriends who are single, they waited, and they started dating as their kids started leaving for college, because that is a time that feels really isolating, and you can feel very alone if you're a single parent when that happens. And then, they're already in a vulnerable state, and they're going into a dating situation where rejection is going to feel worse because they already feel isolated. So if you're going through a major life change, it may not be the time.
Yeah. Or I mean, if you are, I've seen it. It's not my personal life, but I've seen it where they have kids at home and the dad's still in the picture, but they're starting to date again, and the kids aren't always on board with the idea of it. Sometimes a lot of people hold out until the kids are gone because they just don't want to have to put their kid through that situation.
Yeah.
Is my mom or dad getting replaced, or all this stuff, and introducing them to new people. And so just remember, I was actually talking about this to my girlfriend this morning, because she is a single parent who has been dating the same person for a while, but didn't get support from her mom at first, because she was being exposed to all these different people, which wasn't true. She was in longer term relationships, but she dated a few guys before she found this person. And I just think that coming from the opposite, coming from two parents that stayed together for longer than they should have, that it's a very good role model to show that happiness at any age in your life for your own self and self-love and self-worth is a thing and is a priority. If it's really too soon, like, in your gut, if it's too soon, like you might be ready, but your kid might not be ready. That shouldn't stop you from going out and pursuing happiness, because, like you said, 50 years, like I don't want to wait until like Emma's in college, which is in another 10 to start considering dating. That's a really long time to be by myself, and the kid is not where you are in life. As of course they don't like the idea of their parents not being together, but of your happiness matters as well. You just have to make sure that you personally are ready. Maybe your 8-year-old isn't ready, but if you're ready, it's going to feel weird, period, but don't let that stop you. Cause I know that is an issue sometimes from maybe the parent or maybe your kid. Your happiness is worth something no matter what.
And it's healthy for our kids to see us prioritizing our own happiness. And I think a lot of that, very dependent on the age of your children and their personalities as well, but like communicating to your children, because I know a lot of times when parents get divorced and the kids are younger, they do hold out hope that their parents will get back together. So when the parents start dating other people, that can feel very threatening to that idea of reconciliation. So
definitely
having a lot of really open conversations about making new friends and how that's okay. And that, doesn't mean anything necessarily right away. So they don't feel quite so threatened.
Threatened. That is a very good point. Yeah.
And even when your kids are adults, I can imagine, I know my kids really well, and I can imagine if I was single right now and dating, there's a little bit of overprotectiveness, especially with my sons, that I can see becoming a little bit, not an issue, but like I would have to make sure that I am selective about what I share. And I don't, introduce people until I feel that there's some seriousness to the relationship, just because I have 4 kids and they can be a little much when they're all together, especially. We're a very close, tight-knit family. So I can see them. I know this from experience, because I've seen them bring partners into the situation, introduce them. And it can be a little overwhelming, especially for someone who's coming from a smaller family who isn't quite as enmeshed in each other's lives.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. So I guess it doesn't matter what age you are. It's if your parent starts to date, you are just going to probably have that it's not a childish thing. It's a protectiveness thing, you know, because it takes a lot to build that trust up. You know, I'm sure your partner did not get it right away, you know, from your children. It's an earned thing, you know.
Absolutely. It should be.
As it should be. So but never let the idea of the fact that you have kids and what they might think of it stop you. Just like you said, you just gave some very great advice on the matter. You know, I just think a lot of people wait until like they have an empty nest to think of themselves because they don't feel like they're worth that time and energy. Who knows, maybe depending on your situation, your time to yourself has shortened because you're a single parent now and maybe you don't have time to date. But I just think that dating at any age is tough. Dating coming out of a long-term relationship, you're already healing to begin with. And now you come with kids, which when we were first dating, like, you know, before my husband, I didn't have kids. That wasn't something I needed to throw into the mix of conversation. And now that is something, you know, and that's not for everyone. So you're already aware of that as an adult. And if you have children that you're like, by the way, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and depending on what your age is, when you start dating, I mean, when you meet someone when you're young and you grow old together, I mean, that's the love story ideal, right? And works out less than 50% of the time that way, but it's still kind of what we all think of. And when that happens, you guys grow together and you get to know each other intimately and it progresses. So when you meet someone later in life, it's a little bit different. I mean, there are you could have health issues that you at some point need to figure out when is appropriate to share. You could have responsibilities that you might feel a little wary of sharing with them, how they're going to react. That could be that you care for an aging parent, or you have, a child with special needs, or you have someone in your life who's struggling in some way that you feel responsible for. And it becomes a question of like, when do I share this with someone? Because you don't want to trauma dump on someone on the first date.
But you also much a part of your life, and it's not something you can just hide under a rug. You know,
right.
It's going to come up, but we also want to protect ourselves. We're like, do I bother bonding with this person if they're just going to bail the minute they find out I have a mom who I'm taking care of at home, or two kids that I'm raising on my own? You know, like it can be scary, because when we were dating before, depending on when you started dating, it was like not even a thing, you know?
Right, exactly. And I mean, also like when you grow old with someone, you grow your financial situation jointly together.
Yes.
And when you meet someone later in life, you have a lot of considerations financially to think about. They may have debt and you may have no debt. They may have, they may be okay supporting their adult children and you're not. They may be willing to let their family members, live in the home, adult family members like parents or siblings, children, whatever it is, and you may not. So there's a lot of things that do need to be discussed about compatibility in those matters. And you may have different income levels, or you may be retired and very protective of the nest egg that you built. Maybe you were a stay-at-home mom and you've gotten divorced, and that the settlement from your divorce is what you're trying to build your new life on. You're going to be really protective of that, as you should be, because you don't have the ability to immediately replace it. So you need to make sure that those conversations are something important to have in the beginning, so that you don't have major conflict later on. But at the same time, it's awkward to start that conversation to be like, hey, how much debt do you have?
Oh, that's
weird.
Yeah, there's no sexy way to bring that up in a conversation on a date. Yeah,
no.
But
it's not pillow talk.
Like we talked about in a previous podcast about before, like having an adult relationship and talking about these things. It's not about like, oh, you like tapioca pudding, me too, let's get married and live together forever. It's like, oh, when you move in with someone, what's your living situation? What's your debt situation? Like then it becomes your problem. You have a daughter who is going to get married soon. They are a joint situation, and like if he came with like a crazy ton of debt, like it's now her problem, so it's definitely a conversation to have. Do you want to wait until like the L word's brought up and you know, like you know that person on such a deeper, more intimate level where it makes it harder to detach, you know, like I don't know whether there's that. Here's the secret: there is no right time or place or way to bring it up. So just do, maybe not on the first date, but at some point when you feel more, when the conversation is flowing and you guys are talking about on a more serious stuff, there's probably ways to talk about it without being so direct. I don't know, like
Yeah, no, it has to come up. It has to feel natural as part of the conversation.
if I robbed your bank and had access to your checking account, how much money could I steal from you? I don't freaking know. I'm just saying, it's like not the cutest thing, but you don't want to be like shocked and be like hearing it for the first time as you're moving boxes of stuff together in, and you're like,
oh wait, you have $400,000 in student debt. I didn't know
the internet's not turned on because we were denied, because I don't know, like you just you don't want to wait until like it's literally too late where you're like whispering stuff to your mom in the bathroom like, oh, I made a big mistake.
No,
you know, like
you don't want to do that.
I don't know. So yeah, but I mean, like it's very daunting. I feel like people think that having kids makes them less appealing or less attractive, or makes it them like almost instantly like not an option, you know, like people wait a while to tell people about their kids, but I don't know when the right time to tell these things are.
No, I don't either. And it is very complicated because, you know, when you get to a certain age, you've normally like worked really hard to build retirement accounts, maybe to have some personal investments. Maybe you've worked really hard to pay off your student loans or your children's college education. And so coming into a situation with someone who might not be as financially responsible, or maybe it's reversed, can cause a major conflict right out the gate. So it's better to have that conversation early and get a feel for what you're getting into, because you can say there is nothing wrong with saying that someone just isn't a good fit for you. And that's not, you know, you shouldn't feel bad for saying that. And if you hear it from someone else that it's not there, they don't feel like you're a good fit for them, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Sometimes or with them.
It's like a really good showmanship of patterns we have. Like, who knows, maybe your past relationship came from a big financial situation, and you're finding out that the person you're on a date with is currently living at home and has like $14 to their, like, maybe I'm attracted to the wrong type. You know what I mean? Like sometimes like you will find out things in natural conversation that are signs, you know, that it's not a good fit. I think the biggest issue personally that I could think of coming into dating and negative thoughts as an adult is just coming from whatever you're coming from and not letting that affect your future. You know, like you could have been blindsided by somebody clearing your bank account and you are just like, everyone is out to take everything from me. You know, it's like there's a lot of broken trust for coming from somebody who has had a past. Maybe you've been with that person since you were like in 8th grade and you have kids together and you have been together for 30 years and it's your first time dating ever. Like it's just trying to get past whatever your hurdle, whatever you're currently leaving, I feel is probably the biggest hurdle or roadblock when it comes to negative thoughts as dating.
Yeah, because when relationships end, it's rarely all puppies and rainbows, right?
When is it ever like we mutually just realized we were better as besties? Like it's
happily like uncoupled. That. I mean, I think only
even the ones where you're like,
did that.
Whatever, but even then, that's just the public PR way of saying like we don't know the mess that it went through. I mean, the people that come and they find out that, you know, they're better off with the same sex, you know, like there's the trauma of the other person that they left and they're dealing with that. And you're like, is this person that I'm dating also secretly attracted to men or women? You know what I mean? Like just leaving whatever is in the past and not letting that block you from the future, because those things, I keep bringing up like middle school or high school, but that's kind of like when we were first kind of exposed to the idea of what dating culture is like. And those ideas were not even an option to worry about back then. And now we have all these really big time adult things to consider or come from, or that's part of our story that we would never thought would be a part of our story, right? Sometimes it's like, yeah, never would have thought that was going to happen. And now that's part of my story. And I'm not to be bitter about it in this state, you know, that to me would be the hardest thing.
It definitely would be the hardest thing because I mean, there's so much to unpack there. And I would really highly encourage anyone who's gone through a breakup, a divorce, a loss, to do the work to heal that trauma before you move on to the next relationship, because it's very hard to navigate by yourself. That's something that that's a time in your life when you can really benefit from some professional guidance, and fixing and healing those really broken parts and traumas will help you be able to move into a new relationship without bringing any kind of unhealthy dynamic along with you. And now I'm not saying like this doesn't apply to like just the rigidness that some of us have about what's our normal. That is a different thing than we were talking about, because I know if I was dating, that would be an issue for me. I like routine. I like things the way that I like them. And it would be hard for me to kind of merge with someone else's normal, right? We all have our own routines, our own what's normal for us. And that is going to be very different with another fully formed adult, right? When we're in our 20s or teens, we're all figuring it out together. But by the time we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond, we have it figured out for what works for us, which is going to be very different than what works for the person you're introducing into your life. Yeah. That could be, I mean, it doesn't need to be a big thing like a financial issue. It could be, I like to go to bed at this time and have a quiet house, and I like to stay up late, and I like to sit down and eat a real meal at dinner. Yeah. Well, I like to just graze all day. I don't want to eat dinner. Like figuring out how to blend because we get very rigid in our routines. Figuring out how to blend that without, conflict is a great skill, but it's not easy.
No, especially the older you get. Yeah. I believe that if you do the work and you come into the dating world with just all the right ideas and all the right thoughts, then you could go on 20 bad dates and you'd be like, not ready yet. You wouldn't take them so personally. You know what you're looking for. You know what you're not going to look for. You know what you're not going to stand for. You're not in any rush. I've seen people date and not cohabitate for a very long time just because they like their own personal space, but they like the companionship of that person. I feel like the older we get, we get more certain of maybe not necessarily what we want, but what we don't want. So never feel like you need to give in to certain things that you maybe are just not for you because you feel like you need to be with someone, because companionship over being alone is better sometimes, but not always.
That's a really, really good point, because a lot of people do have that fear of aging alone. Yes. And being, alone at your most vulnerable time of your life. So they will grasp on to someone who is convenient or available rather than finding the best fit for them. And it's really important to understand that maintaining relationships is hard work. We all know that, who've ever been in a long-term relationship. Finding connection in the very beginning shouldn't be hard work.
Absolutely not.
You shouldn't have to force that or chase it or compromise for it. So that initial connection of this person fits with me shouldn't be forced or difficult. As the relationship progresses and you guys are dealing with things that come up, that can, maintaining that can be hard work. But it shouldn't, the initial fit of this feels right shouldn't be forced. And I see a lot of people forcing that and really trying
because they fear they'll be alone.
Yeah, like chasing after someone who clearly isn't as invested as they are.
Yeah.
Or compromising their personal values and their boundaries to try to make something work that just isn't. I mean, everyone from the outside can see it isn't working.
Yeah.
That person is trying so hard to make it work. And that's when it isn't right. So you can go on a lot, like Megan said, on 20 bad dates, and you get the mindset of there's no one out there for me. I'm going to be alone. That's not true.
Or you go on 20 dates and you realize like I know what I'm looking for and that's not it yet. Like I know that the longer it takes or the more bad dates you go on, the less feeling like, like that right person is out there. Like I've seen funny TikToks of like people talking to people like at, I don't know, a Runyon, or talking about like, oh, what's it like dating in LA? And everybody has the same reaction, like, oh, it's shit. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, it's the worst. And it's like, I'm sure after like the 15th terrible date, I'd probably be a little hardened to the idea. but I certainly don't want to ever be so desperate to have a companion to where like after like, okay, by 23, I don't even care who it is or what it is. It's the one, like, I don't know. Like, when you have that number, you're like, I can't do this anymore. Okay. Well then maybe take a beat, take a time to yourself.
And maybe
then
consider that the way you're going about it might be the issue.
Yes. Maybe the bar scene is not for you because the person you want really isn't ever going to go to the bar. They're going to go to a wine and painting night. Like, I don't know what it may just be the environment.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe online dating is the wrong crowd for you. Or like she said, the bar. You can, what we said earlier, find something that you feel interested in and pursue it and make connections there. I mean, you're going to run into other single people in whatever interest you explore. Don't be afraid to tell friends and family, hey, I'm dating again. Because they may have people that they know would be a great match for you, and they've just been holding out because they didn't know if you were ready.
Exactly. So, because you never want to push someone on someone when they, no matter how long it's been. It could be a year that they've been divorced, and you haven't seen them date someone else. You're like, I don't want to be that person to be like, hey, I know someone, because you haven't seen them out yet. Once someone's out, then it's like, oh, I know somebody for you. Then you're gonna be bombarded with it.
Everybody, we all have different social circles and that overlap a little bit. So that is a great way to meet people. If you get it, I mean, if you've been coupled for years and now you're single, it can be awkward also when all your friends are still coupled up and they, invite you to dinner parties where it's all couples and then you. So if that's the case, it's okay to put the word out there, it'd be so great if I wasn't the only single person there. Like if you know any other people, not even with the mindset of matchmaking, but just so that you're not the only single person at the table and the odd chair in the corner.
Oh my God.
Because that may be a way where an organic connection is made. Mm-hmm. You don't know where that's going to come from. So you have to be open-minded to opportunities. That is the case no matter what it is. If you're looking for a friend, you're looking for a job, you're looking for a partner, you have to be open-minded and kind of look away from our phones a little bit and look around you when you're out and about and see what other people are doing and what's worked for them. Ask people, how did you meet? So he seems great. How'd you meet him? And get ideas, because we do get in this mindset of I can only meet people online or at a bar. And that's, I know it wouldn't be a good fit for me. So I can imagine it wouldn't be a good fit for quite a few people. And there, like Megan mentioned, there are niche websites also. Yeah. If you are looking for people who are, one of the issues that I've heard a lot from my single friends is that dating is very difficult past mid-age because most of the men in our age group are looking at younger women. And so it can be hard to find, men who aren't looking to date our daughter's age people. And so like that allows us, okay, so we have to date people in their 80s. Like, how does that work? So, there are websites specifically geared for people dating in that age range. And if so, that's something that you run into a few times and kind of leaves a yuck for you, that might be something to explore. Or if your religion is really important to you, as Megan mentioned, there are websites that are religion specific. And if it's really important for you to find someone who has the same faith and values as you do, that's a great option. There are all kinds of different dating websites.
All kinds of apps, all kinds of ways to connect with people. I just think that sometimes too many options is like too much. It's like when you're just exploring the idea of it and people are like, guess what? There's 30 different platforms on 30 different things you can try to find one person, because it's a numbers game, right? Like, and then you're just like, wow, maybe in a minute, like, I don't know, just, it's hard to do it. When you're ready to do it, it can be fun. I don't know. Sometimes it can be fun to like, meet new people and get out there. And sometimes dating as an adult can get you into hobbies that you wouldn't necessarily have thought that you were into. Sometimes meeting somebody else later on in life, they do stuff that brings that side out in you. I know that I've seen you do some stuff with your partner that I've never seen you do before. You guys do a lot of outdoorsy stuff and exploring. Yeah, and I think that's really cool. you know.
I am indoorsy.
Okay, cool.
So,
I didn't want to label you as indoorsy, but I was going to say that.
Yeah.
So when I see you do these things, I'm like, well, dang. I'm like, somebody is pulling that out of you, because there's something about sharing a passion or seeing or being passionate about the thing that your person you're dating is passionate about. It's fun. You know, you're like, I never been to a Chargers game, and here I am wearing a jersey and cheering like crazy because that's my partner's passion, and now it's become mine. So dating itself as an adult can be fun because you're exploring new parts of life that you might not have ever explored or considered had you not met that person. So
yeah, and there are a lot of opportunities for those kinds of new interests where they will pair you up. I know our like local club, both of the clubs that we're part of, like if you want to golf or play tennis or anything like that and you don't have a partner, they pair you up. And
love that.
it's a great way to learn a new
just
hobby.
do that all the time until I meet my person. I'd be
there
like,
you go,
my partner next. You know,
you can meet good friends that way. You can make connections, and it's okay, you know, that if every single one isn't a match, because it's just about getting yourself out there and getting more comfortable with those small talk initial conversations. If you haven't had to do that in a while, if you have the same friend group and you're with the same partner for a long time, that can be really awkward.
Or if your friends are their friends, and now all of a sudden your social circle has kind of shrunken for temporarily because they don't really know which way to sway. So you're just like, hey, cool, I'm by myself. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's really a very common thing to come out, especially of a divorce, with a little bit of a bruised ego. And that can happen in a myriad of ways, but a lot of times there's some soft spots there. There's a little bit of, we mentioned insecurity, but I'm going to go back to that word where, you know, maybe you didn't expect that you would get divorced. You go through a divorce. I've been through it. It sucks. It's very common to leave that situation with a bit of a bruised ego. And you can feel a lot of emotions around the failure of your marriage. That's something that you need to process, but it can, even if you've processed it and you've taken responsibility for whatever percentage of it was yours and dealt with, you know, why the relationship didn't work, then when you move forward from that, having someone not click with you or not want a second date or whatever it is, you'll revert right back to that thinking, oh, I'm not attracted. Maybe there were conflicts in your prior relationship that sorry, my phone's ringing, that were like felt personal, like you know, so you can revert back to that, and it can be like an issue of, am I not attractive enough? Am I not smart enough?
It can be a triggering response to the situation.
Exactly.
Because whoever really heals from those wounds, I'm sorry, like I'm not asking anyone to be fully healed before they go back into the dating world. You know what I mean? It's kind of just like you just know, you know, when you're just like, okay, the idea, maybe your partner's been dating for a while and like the idea is there, but like it takes very, like you said, it takes very little almost to just like open up all of those wounds again and like respond in a way that is like where you're channeling your most darkest days, you know? And that's really sad, you know, and it sucks. And it's a lot of pressure on the person that's dating you too, that you're just like,
it really is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to traumatize you there. You know,
when we've been in a long-term relationship, it's very typical that we get comfortable, right? And then when we're suddenly thrust back into the dating scene, we have to look at ourselves in a way where, how are outside people going to be looking at me? Like my partner and I had a dynamic. We were a certain way together. And it's like when you see someone you haven't seen in a long time, kind of looking at them with fresh eyes, you have to do that to yourself. You have to look at yourself and how you're presenting yourself to the world. And it feels really vulnerable. So, you know, whatever your natural insecurities are, they'll come right to the surface. So you have to kind of talk to yourself in a gentle and kind way and give yourself the same advice that you would give to one of your friends who was in that situation, where you say things to yourself like, if something doesn't work out on a first date, second date, or after a few months of dating, it's not working out, you have to, you know, remind yourself that you're looking for your personal match, and someone can be amazing and a really good person and not right for you. And that doesn't make them bad. And if you believe that, which I think it's rational to believe that, you have to believe it in reverse also.
Yeah.
So if someone says, this isn't working for me, you have to believe that you have a lot to offer, and it just happens to not be right for them. And they could be dealing with their own shit and their own issues, or it could just not be what they're looking for. You don't know what they're looking for. And it really, it's not personal to you. Mm-hmm. So you have to let go of what is not meant for you in order to find what the universe has for you. And there is something out there for you. There's something out there for everyone. So don't force it. Don't, go home and be upset about it and ask yourself how you failed. You did not. Nothing is wrong with you. You are absolutely amazing. And you will find the person who looks at you, sees you for exactly what you are, and is like, you're awesome. You're exactly what I need. You shouldn't have to change yourself or, yes, heal your trauma, fix your issues for yourself. You're not doing that for someone else. You're doing that for yourself.
No, but I mean, like, really though, like, in order to give anything the best chance, the best way for them to, I mean, it's hard to come in and be a step parent or a new relationship period into a situation. So the more you work on yourself, the healthier your newer relationship will be.
Yeah, I had my daughter this weekend. We were moving her into her new place, and we had a very interesting conversation while we were doing that. And she asked me what regrets that I have in my life. And I mean, there are a lot of things I could say, but at the same time, every choice that I've made has led me exactly where I am, and I'm very happy where I am. So I don't know that there's a lot I would change, but the one thing that I could think of was that I wish I had my kids very young. And I wish, although I wouldn't change it because I wouldn't have the exact kids I have, right? So you can't say I'd do it.
Right. Yeah, right.
I wish that I had the time and knowledge to heal my own trauma from the way I was parented before I started parenting other people. Mm-hmm. I think I did okay, even with that trauma. But when I think about what a better parent I would have been if I had been able, like now I'm super self-aware and I've had therapy and stuff. So I can look back and I can see the issues that I had as a child and how that has caused me some behaviors as an adult. I didn't see that then. I was too young. And I hadn't
reactionary.
Yeah. And I hadn't done the work. Mm-hmm. And really I hadn't dissected my childhood and figured out where those behaviors were coming from. Now I have. So the only thing that I could say that I wish is that I had, healed the child me before I became a mother. And it's the same for a relationship. If you don't heal the hurt that someone has caused you or that you brought in from childhood or whatever, then you're going to, repeat patterns that might not best serve you or the partner that you're trying to build a new life with. Exactly. So it's exactly the same concept. And I really recommend anyone who's thinking about having kids to please heal your childhood traumas first, because you going to therapy will keep your kids from having to go to therapy later. Yeah. And also, like, if you work on yourself before you start a relationship, that relationship has a better chance of being long-term and healthy. And B, maybe you guys can avoid having to go to like couples therapy later.
Yeah. I mean, Dan is such a patient person. My husband is such a patient person, and he's so wonderful. And like when we were dating, my mom died unexpectedly. So he went through a lot of helping me heal through a lot of different situations. Like he's just been the most patient person and continues to be. But it's like, he didn't sign up for any of that, and it's like, as patient as he is, I got really lucky in that situation. And I'm not saying that like, oh, good for him for being there through that, but it's like, no matter what your situation is, trauma you're bringing in, dealing with, coming into, it's just a lot on your partner to have their own going on and then have to properly be there for you in the best way.
Yeah, your partner.
They're not supposed to fix
your therapist. They shouldn't be your therapist, and they shouldn't have to reparent you.
Exactly.
Those are two things that happen a lot in relationships. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would just do your best to just become as whole of a person on your own as you can before entering the dating world, so that, because it's honestly, as nice as the person might be, it's still not their actual job on this planet to to fix those things, you know?
Yeah. And I can say,
but it's not their job.
Yeah. And nobody's perfect. And none of us are all 100% mentally, great, right? We all have issues. But what I'm saying is, if you are, like Megan said, a mentally whole, spiritually healthy, have your shit together person, you're going to naturally attract a different quality of partner.
Yeah.
So what I've found is that people who are hurting and people who have unhealed trauma, the connections you make in your trauma are not the same connections that you make in your healing.
You tend to find people that you feel like you can fix, or that maybe similar to the thing you just left. It's just toxic. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Sometimes you can find people who are predatory in that situation because you are so vulnerable. Totally. So it's a self-protection thing. And it's a showing up as the best version of yourself and for your partner.
This was heavy.
Yeah, I know.
But that's okay. But it's okay. I think we established that the negative thoughts in the dating world are inevitable, but it's just about knowing, not taking it too hard on yourself, and knowing that there are ways to go about it in a great way, in a fun way, in an exciting way. It's supposed to be an exciting time in our lives, no matter when it starts. But
yeah, I really think healthy relationships should be friendships first. That's my opinion. I know not everybody feels that way, but if I was to be dating at this stage of my life, I think I wouldn't take it that seriously. I think I would tell myself that I'm going out to meet new friends, and I would see how that goes. And then if it feels a lot of
pressure when you feel like you're on like a search.
Yeah, if I'm just making friends with different people and then I happen to feel a romantic connection to one of them, that would be the one I would explore. But I wouldn't put so much pressure on myself that every date has to be a love match, and every connection has to be romantic.
Turns up when our ex starts to date, like there's this pressure, like even like mutual friends. So like, oh, well, that person, like you feel like you have to almost match them sometimes, and you might not be ready. And then it forces stuff, don't force anything. Just let it flow, work on yourself, hang out with people that bring out the best in you, and you will naturally find that connection.
Exactly. Your timetable isn't anyone else's timetable. And you only answer to yourself.
Yeah.
So be kind to yourself, everyone out there dating in the world today.
Ugh.
I've never tried it, but it looks terrible.
Yeah, I'm not running to it.
be really protective of your spirit, and be really kind to yourself, and take it easy. Don't rush it. There's nothing wrong with being single. No. There's nothing lacking in you if you're single. If you're single and feeling happy and fulfilled in that place, don't force something. And get help from the people who know you and love you. They may have, connections, like we said, that are softer to introduce rather than like swiping left and right.
All right.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this advice helps someone. Maybe someone out there needed to hear this today.
Oh, someone for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a funny or interesting dating anecdote that you want to share, we would love to hear it, because we haven't been out there. So we're curious.
We have nothing to share.
Yeah. You can head to Facebook and search for She's a Full-On Monet. You'll find our page there, and it has an attached discussion group. So we would love to hear your guys' experiences and what worked and didn't work for you out in the dating world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, thank you guys for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to bookmark our site, she'safullonmonet.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're enjoying this podcast, it helps us a lot if you can follow, rate, and review. See y'all next week.